Hello everyone. In this lecture I will talk about different levels of text analysis. If you remember from the last class, we did distinction between two approaches to the text analysis, or two approaches how to analyze text. The textual analysis focusing on text, and analysis that focuses on reception of a text or on reader's cooperation, which we have done in the last class and you have done in your homework. So today in this lecture we will focus on the textual analysis, and this is a slide from the last presentation. So you remember that we can differentiate three levels of text analysis. The lexical level, it means level of words. The level of sentence, which is level of communication, of communicative intention, and a suprasentential level. This means level above the sentence, which is level of discourse. This classification is technical. Of course, sometimes the lexical level is like overlap level of sentence and level of discourse. If I say stop, it's a word, I say one word, but also it's a sentence, and also it could be a discourse of prohibiting doing something, so part of a discourse. So this differentiate, this classification on lexical, sentence and discourse is rather technical than substantial. First we will start on the most elementary level. This is the lexical level. So what is a word? Word is the most elementary unit of a text that generates meaning. If I say table, you know what it means. You can learn what it means in a dictionary. You can learn that table means a piece of furniture consisting of a smooth, flat slab fixed on legs. Or there are more meanings, not just one. Table could mean a systematic arrangement of data, usually in rows and columns, for ready reference. So these are two meanings of the word table. We don't have smaller unit of language that generate meanings. Even if we have letters that sometimes generate meaning, for example in a list, you can see A, B, C, D. These are letters and they have meaning. So we know this is the A, this is the first row, B, the second row, or first item, the second item. But they function as words. Even if they are just A, they function as words. It's not a letter itself. It's the item is a symbol for an item in a list, and as a symbol it's a word. And we have two types of words: content and function. Content words that are mostly used in textual analysis, and we will work with content words predominantly. Content words have meanings. So like table, to give up, clever. So if I say table, you can understand, or you can relate, link the word to some meaning. Next we have function words that are very important for making sentences, for example, for speaking or writing. Function words express grammatical relationship with other words. Examples of function words could be word like, or or because, or since. So these are function words. They are rarely used in text analysis, but sometimes I found an example of doing analysis of function words, and this is analysis of word just in local politicians' discourse, in particular as denial of politics. So when politicians say it's really just as simple as that, they express an idea, or the idea, that it's not about politics, it's just simple as that. It's not nothing about ideology, it's just a pure fact, or just a pure common sense. So this article, or this study, was about function word just, but it's not common. Mostly we focus on content word, for example word globalization, word school, or whatever is topic of our study. In the analysis, we don't work with words as words, but we use something that replaces it to be exact. We work with lemma, which is the canonical form for a family of words. For example, lemma teach stands for all words that has something like lexically common with teach. So teach, taught, teaching. In English, lemma is not so important as a proxy for analysis on the level of words, but in Slavic languages, as in Czech, it's very important because Slavic languages are inflected, so they have various form of words. The words change all the time. So to be able to count words, we must use lemmas. We count lemmas, not words, because words change all the time. So we replace it with lemmas, which are stable, and we lemmatize the text to transform it in lemmas. More frequently, we use keyword, which is a natural representation of a semantic field. So we don't use words, but we use keywords that stands for some field of meaning. We can have keyword nano, which stands for nanotechnology, nanospider, nanofiber, and other related words in the field of nanotechnology, or the world which is very, very, very small. We can have keyword global for all that concerns the whole Earth. We can have keyword bio or organic, poverty, gender. So we do analysis using keywords, not words. And keywords represent some thematic or semantic field. And last, we can use code. Code is the most artificial replacement of a word. It's a constructed index for a semantic field. For example, we can have code school, and code school stands for all words linked to education. So we can have code school, and we can list all words we want to we include in the code. So in the analysis, we code by the code school or instances of words related to education. So school, teacher, pupil, even school reform, or teacher's problem, not just word but two words together. So this is a code. And mostly we used keywords, but especially in qualitative analysis we use codes. And what can we do with words or keywords or lemmas or codes, whatever? First, we can count them. So observe their frequency in our sample, in our corpus, in text, and relate it, because just counting doesn't say anything about reality. We must count and relate the numbers to some other reality, not just the textual reality, some other reality. So to some context, and mostly we use social context. So as you remember, Google Ngrams, I hope it will work. Yes. We have two words, moral and normal, and we can see from 1820 till 2000 the variation of frequency in Google Books, in books scanned by Google. So we see the rise of frequency of the word normal, which is the red curve, and the slight decline and stability of the word moral. So we can say, and this is the relationship to social context, that 20th century was century of normality in relationship to morality. That the normality was more important than normality, and because at the end of the 20th century the frequency of word normal declined. So we are leaving the normal times, and we perhaps we will search for another word that describe what we live in. This is one example. The second example is more recent. It's frequency of the term coronavirus in the Czech media, and in bodies. So number of mentions, number of use of the word, and number of infected bodies, and we can compare it. In February 21st, there were 530 mentions of coronavirus in Czech media, and 0 infected bodies documented. 28th of February, more than 1,000 mentions of or occurrences of coronavirus in Czech media, and still 0 infected bodies. In March, 6th March, there were almost 3,000 of mentions of coronavirus in media, and almost 20 infected bodies, and a week later there were 6,000 mentions of coronavirus and 141 infected bodies. So we can see that even if occurrences in media are growing rapidly, the growth of infected bodies is even higher. So from 0 to 20, and in a week from 20 to 140, that means 7 times more, while the mentions are just 2 times more number of mentions of coronavirus. So this is also something that we can do with counting words, that the infected bodies, the number of infected bodies grows more rapidly than mentions of coronavirus in media, in Czech media. Secondly, we can observe occurrences of words or keywords, lemmas, etc. in relation to their co-text, not context but co-text, and this is in form of collocation, co-occurrence, and keyword in context. And I will show you how we can do it. Co-location, it means counting words that co-occur closely, that are just one beside other. So, for example, after 9/11 is a collocation, and you can observe the frequency of this collocation in some topic, in political discourse or in history discourse, this collocation after 9/11. Or we can observe the collocation unauthorized immigrant. This is immigrants. This is also collocation, and we can look if this collocation occur more in speeches of right-wing politicians or left-wing politicians or centrists, or latest news. This is also collocation. So we can focus on collocation. It means when and where two words co-occur together. Co-occurrence, proper co-occurrence, is different, because it's not just that two words are close together, occur close together, one after another, but we determine a span of text and we count how many times two words co-occur together in this span of text. For example, in a sentence, in a paragraph, or in a web page. It depends. So they are not closely related, but they are both, or perhaps 3 words together in a determinate span of text. I did research on economic discourse, and we observed co-occurrences of inflation or rise in prices. Rise in prices and inflation are synonyms. The meaning is same. Rise in prices means inflation. Inflation means rise in prices. So we looked in Czech media, and we observed in Czech media in 2013, and we observe the 5 words before and 5 words after the word inflation or the keyword rise in prices. So around, we observe 5 words, or in the 10 words span of a text, we observe co-occurrences of inflation or rise in prices with other words. And what we discovered that rise in prices co-occur with such words as fear, cheapen, important touch, gasoline, sharp, importable food. Mostly with words that relate to some problems. So rise in price is a problem, while inflation related or inflation co-occurred most frequently with words like targeting, undershooting, core, monetary politics, policy, corrective fulfillment, 2% target attainment. So with some objectives, inflation co-occurred in text together with an objective targeting with some positive, rather positive value. So we can see that there are two different words that are synonym, and one is related to positive context or positive meaning, and the second, this is inflation, and the second is related to negative meaning. So we could differentiate two values of the same word or the same term, and one occurred, the rise in price occurred in popular media, in especially in tabloid press, while inflation occurred most in this context, this positive, most in broadsheet press, so in serious press. So we can see two, not discursive, but I would say two narratives of rising prices or inflation. So this is co-occurrence, that we look for our keyword or code and other words or other terms that are around but not necessarily closed as in collocation. So it could be on the page, within 10 words before and after, or within a paragraph. The third technique or of counting, or what we can do with words, with counting words, is labeled keyword in context, or KWIC, which is a list of a word in the text in our corpus, and it helps us identify frequent use of the word or positive or negative tone. It's something similar as this, but here we just count it. But in keyword in context, we look for the code text. It's called context, but we know that it's textual, so it's code text, in fact, of some verb. Just look on one example. This is the keyword we are looking for is immigrant or immigrants, and we search for in which context it is used, and we can see that the context is mostly about illegality or legality and illegality, and about numbers. So immigrants are used related to the legal status, their legal status, and their numbers. This is the dominant use of words illegal, immigrants in media, in some data sample, and also the third frequent context is about deportation, jail, criminality, jails, criminal. So we can see three use of the term immigrant. So they are used together with their legal status, their numbers, and the criminal environment. Another example of keywords in context is from research on globalization, and this is the research was interested in the tone, positive, negative, or neutral, of using word globalization in three U.S. newspapers: New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post in the period of 80s and 90s, and they found occurrences of the word globalization, and next they looked on the code text and scored if there is positive, if it was positive, neutral, or negative. And we can see that the dark rectangle, which is neutral frame, they call it framing, but we could call it also a sentiment or values. So that neutral framing is declining with the time, while the negative frame is rising, and the positive frame, which is triangle, is somehow rising at the beginning, at the end of 90s of the last century, and is like stable. There's stable in 90s. So this is also a possibility how to use keyword in context, that we look for the tone, positive, neutral, or negative, in relation to some keyword. In this example, keyword globalization. And finally, the last example of counting words. This is a recent book published last year, Representation of Poverty and Place, using geographical text analysis to understand discourse. They relate discourse of poverty, means representation of poverty in discourse, or linguistic representation of poverty, with place, so with geography. And what they did, they combined textual and geographic analysis to understand the representation of poverty in United Kingdom. And first, they constructed a corpus of text, their data sample. So they took articles from two newspapers, Guardian and Daily Mail, and they selected only articles that contained word poverty and other power-related keywords. So they used the method of keywords, not lemmas, not codes, just keywords. And also they recorded localities, name of localities in these sentences about poverty for a certain period of time. So there is an example of the sentence: Mike Berry once a debt advisor in Citizen Advice, now operation director, blah blah blah. And there is a Blackpools. So Blackpool is a locality worsening poverty and in the rise. So in this sentence there is co-occurrence of name of place or some locality and poverty, so it means representation of poverty in discourse. So the first task or first step was to construct data sample. In the second, they created maps of localities linked to poverty for both newspapers. So we can see the density of term poverty and related keywords together, which cope with localities in newspapers. In Guardian, it's A, this map, so the most of mentions of poverty is linked to London, in Guardian, is linked to London and to the north of England, while in Daily Mail, the London is same, the most frequent location in media, in Daily Mail, mentioned together with poverty keywords, but also the Midland, or the part in the center of northern England. So they are different, the distribution is different between two newspapers. Of course, for me, I don't know very well England, so I cannot interpret it in detail, but for them the differences are clearly visible. And in the second step, they identified co-text of poverty in different localities and compared. In London, they found words together with poverty, like 2, 1, rate, reach, country, protest, slum, reason, so on. While in the rest of UK, co-text was different. 2, risk, lowest people, left, care. So if in discourse about poverty related to London, newspapers, in Daily Mail, it's Daily Mail, in London they talk about rates, about country, about protest, or Victorian, so it means in past, while for the rest of UK they wrote about risks, about lowest class or lowest income, etc. So the discourse was different, or the poverty was represented different from poverty in London and poverty in the rest of UK in Daily Mail. This was one of the results. And this is example of recent application of counting words, analysis of text. So it's not just about counting, we must count, but also count not only words, but some other social context. And we relate these two counts together, and we can infer some results, interpretation about both. How discourse and non-discourse reality is related. And we move on to level of sentence. If we are not sure about meaning of a word, we can look at dictionary, and we find the meaning of the word there. For example, table, the word table. If we don't know exactly the meaning or all meanings of the word dictionary, the word table, we can look at dictionary. While in case of sentence, there is not any dictionary of sentences, because a sentence is our product. We don't make words, but we do make sentences. Sentences are our sentences. If we want to find meaning of some sentence, we must ask the speaker or the author of the sentence to explain the meaning of the sentence. This is crucial difference between words that pertains to language and sentences that pertains to authors, to speakers. It depends, sometimes authors, sometimes speakers. And sociological text analysis uses pragmatic modes of analysis of sentences rather than syntactics or semantics. You remember from the first class, or the second class, we talked about semiotics. That semiotics has 3 branches. First is semantics, about meanings. Second is about syntactics, which is about combination of symbols, mutual relationship among symbols. And the third is pragmatic, about the use of language in society. We can analyze sentences semantically. What do sentences mean? Or syntactically, from the syntactic point of view, how they are constructed, their grammatic construction, grammatic structure. But in sociological text analysis, we focus mostly on pragmatic, so how people use sentence to do something, to achieve something, to accomplish something. It's about using sentences, not about the inner grammatic structure of sentence, not about the meaning of sentence, because it's sometimes complicated for sociology to know what is the real meaning, or even the concept of real meaning of sentence is problematic. So how people do something with sentences, they can negotiate, agree, convince, or harm people, attack people, or apologize. So there are many things we can do with sentences. And when we talk about sentence, we should mention, or I should mention, 2 models of communication, 2 standard models of communication, and which one we will use in our analysis. The traditional, the classical model of communication is so-called encoding-decoding. Doesn't confuse it with the Stuart Hall's chapter encoding-decoding. This is different. We can look at communication in terms of encoding-decoding, that there is a sender who wants to communicate some information, so he encodes in a message which is sent by channel. It could be language, speech, and receiver decode it in the same code and get the information. So the information or message is encoded in medium, and next it is decoded by receiver. This is the simple model of communication. In sociology, it doesn't work, because for receiver it is difficult to know in which code it was encoded. If we take the conversation or the communication, how are you? So how are you is one sentence, and it's a question, and the response is I'm fine. So I'm fine. If sender is encoding I'm fine, so receiver can decode it in several ways, and there is no rules in language how it should be decoded, in what code, because we can, as this graph shows, we can have different meaning of I'm fine. I'm fine could mean I'm rather boring, or it could mean I am bursting with joy, which is the least probable, or please help me, I'm unhappy. And for receiver, it is not it is impossible just from language, from knowledge of language, decode the information, which was the information sender intended to communicate. So receiver has to infer, not decode, not only decode, but also infer the meaning of the utterance or the speech "I'm fine," the sentence "I'm fine." So that's why we talk about inferential model of communication, that sender is communicating something in the form of sentence, and receiver is inferring what could be the meaning, and and he does it, or he or she does it mostly from the social context in which the communication appear. So if I'm fine sounds like yes, I'm fine, it means I'm boring. If it's expressed with a joy, so it means I'm bursting with joy. If it's like in the sense of unhappy, the receiver could infer that the meaning of the sentence is I'm unhappy. So there are two different models of communication. One is simpler, encoding, decoding, but in sociological analysis we must use the inferential model of communication, because there are many other variables or many other factors that are involved in decoding the message. Not only linguistic communication, not only the linguistic code, but also social circumstances of the communication. So in which situation the sentence is realized, was spoken, was said. So, and finally, we move to top level, which is called suprasentential level, so level above sentence. And we have this level because scholars realize that some properties of text cannot be explained just from properties of sentences. This is the first, and the second just in linguistic terms. Consider this conversation between parent and daughter. Where are you going? And daughter answers, nowhere. Where are you going with? No one. When will you be back? Don't know. This is a normal conversation. I can imagine it, and it can occur. It's nothing strange in terms of social situation that parents are asking, and adolescent daughter is responding, and we can understand it. That where are you going? Yes, where are you going? It's clear. Nowhere. It means it's not your. It is not your business. Ask me where I'm going, but I'm not going to dangerous place. It's nowhere. It means it's something normal. I don't need to say you because to tell you because it's nothing that should interest you. Who are you going with? No one. Means with usual people, with my friends. No one special to be announced to you. And when will you be back? I don't know. It means I'm not planning to be out till tomorrow morning or for 5 minutes. It's just a usual time. usual situation. This conversation, as I explained the meaning of the conversation, of why this conversation is understandable and can occur in normal situation, is that we don't take, or I didn't take, the meaning of sentences in their face value. So nowhere doesn't mean nowhere, it means something different, as I demonstrated in inferential model of communication. So if the meaning of the conversation cannot be explained from the properties of sentences. It's not in the properties of sentences. We can explain it from properties of the social situations, about from social relation between a parent and his or her child, daughter in this case, the age and the usual actions they do, so the habits of going out. Nor we can use just linguistic terms. We must use the knowledge of social context to explain it. This is why we must use suprasentential level if we want to analyze texts, in this case conversation. We cannot stay on level of sentences. There is something, the conversation is something which is above sentence. There are many sentences, and we can understand. If we take just one sentence, where are we going with? This is understandable alone, as the sentence alone, but no one is not understandable alone, because if you take just no one, you will say it's that she is going out alone, but it's not true. No one means it's nothing special. I have to tell you. So the meaning is different. So we cannot use only linguistic understanding. We must use the whole conversation to understand what's going on. And this is suprasentential level. The reason why we must take in account suprasentential level. And in the course, we will differentiate between two types of suprasentential level, two kinds of suprasentential level. The first is analysis of language use in social context. This is the example of the conversation between parent and daughter. This use of language in social context, in conversation between parent and adolescent child, or young people, a young person. So this will be discourse analysis, and one kind of discourse analysis is conversation analysis. Or we can do analysis of suprasentential structures. They are called macro structures, which is not about discourse, but it's about structures that are in text. And the example of such analysis is narrative analysis. Look at this sentence. The king died, and then queen died of grief. This is a narrative. This is not a simple chronic. The simple chronic would be a simple sentence, understandable on the level of sentence, would be the king died and then queen died. This is chronicle, we understand it. There is nothing special in it. But when we add the reason why, the cause why she died, the king died, and then queen died of grief, he start thinking, what happened? Why she died of grief? And he starts thinking, yes, so he died because of grief, because king died, so they had to have good relationship. And this is a narrative the narrative is series of discrete events that are connected by some plot. That there is something that start to unfold. So if we read the king died and then queen died of grief, we know that there is some story that starts to unfold, and we want to know more. While the simple sentence, the king died and then queen died, is finished. It's like it happened. The king died and then queen died. Chronicle objective facts. But if we add of grief, we start to tell the story. So the story, the narrative, is macro structure, is something that is a structure of a text or textual structure that communicate new information. It's not only about words, but it communicates new information. The story begins. There will be something that should be told. It's worth telling, and we will deal with narratives as structures and what they do in a text and in social life in following lectures. Well, the highest level suprasentential level, and we can do the analysis of language use in social context. So we focus on context in which sentences occur, multiple sentences as in conversation, or we can look for macrostructures as in storytelling. Is there a story in the text? Is the text story or not? It's just description, or there is more, there is some plot. And what is plot? What is the point? What is the interesting why we read the story about king and queen? And now homework. I will explain your homework for the next class. I will determine deadlines in Moodle. You will have enough time to do it because we are in special situation. So don't worry about timing. Now it is important to understand what to do. The task is, what differences, or the question, research question is, what differences are between an article and the comments on it in terms of words, their frequencies and concordances of keywords. Concordances are co-occurrences, other words, linguistic term for co-occurrences. So you will do operative reading analysis of the article and comments, of an article and comments. Operative, you remember, it's going on the lexical surface. It's not interpreting the text, it's not cooperation, as you have done in last homework. In this homework, you will do operative analysis, counting, not cooperation. And data, the article is from David Graeber, he's an anthropologist, and he was involved in Occupy Wall Street movement, and he wrote an article, Some Remarks on Consensus. It's available if you click on this link, and below the article there are 54 comments. People discuss, comment the article. So this is your data and what you will do with data. First, you will count frequencies of words, both for the article and comment. And you can do it easily by using word frequency counter, which is free available online. It's not found yet. So the article is here. You copy the article, paste it in here, submit, and you will get frequency. So this is the first task. Count word frequencies for both article and comments separately. So to see which words are most frequent in the article and which words are most frequent in the comments. From the list of frequent words, select about 100 of most frequent ones, because there are many words, so just 100, the first most frequent 100 words. But do not include paratextual words. You know already what is paratext, that it's not a part of text. It's for example, title or author or date, or you know what is paratext. So do not include paratextual words. They are not interesting for us in this homework. And third step, compare word frequencies between the article and comments. Are there any differences that may be analytically promising? So you will have two columns of frequent words, and you will compare it, and for example, there will be some words which occur frequently in the article but never occur in comments, or some words that occur frequently in comments but never occur in article. And you can say, okay, so in comments they focus on this topic which was not included in the article. That's interesting, that readers find something interesting which is not included in the article, or vice versa. Next, you take some interesting frequent words and observe them as keyword in context. If you find it's about Occupy Wall Street, one of the frequent words could be occupy or protest, or protest. So you take protest, and you will find in which context it occurs, in which what is environment, textual environment of the word protest in the article and in comments, and compare if the use of, or the environment, verbal environment, is same in if the word is used in the same manner in the article and in comments. And you will do it easily using another online system. So you will go to WebCorp. This is the link here, WebCorp, and enter your keyword in your search protest. Next, select, click on Advanced option, select Search Engine, click on Advanced option, search engine, select Bing, put here inside in the text box the address of the web page with article and comments without HTTP. So just Occupy Wall Street, etc. So put it here, the address, and click on search, and you will get a list of, if I put this search, and you will get these code text of the term, but this is for British newspaper, while you will get this for the article and comments. And the question is, what can you say about textual differences between article and the comments in terms of using frequent words in context? So is different, is the using word protest different in the article by Graeber, and in comments? Do they use the word protest in different contexts or different textual environment? And if they do, so write it's the same. They use protest in the same verbal environment, in the same meaning, you can say. And but there could be difference. They can use it differently. So this is the second question. Okay, if you have any question to the presentation, to the lecture, or to your homework, just write me email. I will make a quiz with some three questions regarding the content of today's lecture. So I will check if you if you watch the presentation, and I will determine the deadline for the homework. Probably it would be the next Sunday or Monday after next Sunday. I will see. I will get you enough time. If you have some problems, some questions, just write me email, and I will try to find some platform for online discussion and for online consultation. But at the moment I don't know exactly how to do it. But I am available. I am ready to help you with anything. So thank you for your attention.